you ever just stared at a blinking cursor for like 3 solid hours, knowing you have a major deadline in 12?
Yeah, you basically just summarized my entire undergraduate college existence.
Right, exactly. But what if I told you that procrastination isn't actually a time management issue at all? It's fundamentally an emotion regulation problem.
Wait, what? No. It's definitely because I lack discipline. Like, I'm just fundamentally, irrevocably lazy.
See, that's the ubiquitous myth. Everyone thinks they're just profoundly undisciplined. Welcome to English Pod Center, by the way. I'm Luna.
And I'm Lucas, the resident undisciplined lazy person, apparently.
You're not lazy, Lucas. Your brain is actually just throwing a microscopic neurobiological temper tantrum.
A temper tantrum? Okay, you've lost me. What does that even mean?
Okay, so think about the amygdala. That's the almond-shaped cluster in your brain, right? It processes fear and existential threats.
Right, the fight or flight thing. Like if I suddenly encounter a grizzly bear in the woods.
Exactly. But here's the catch. Your brain can't differentiate between a literal grizzly bear and a highly intimidating, extremely tedious spreadsheet you have to fill out for your boss.
Okay, come on. A spreadsheet is not a bear. I mean, sure, Excel is utterly terrifying, but it's not going to physically maul me.
Cognitively, sure, you know that. But neurobiologically, your amygdala perceives the daunting task as a legitimate threat to your self-esteem.
Wait, really? So it's literally just trying to protect me from feeling inadequate or stupid?
Bingo! The task induces severe anxiety, inadequacy, or just sheer boredom. So your brain is like, abort mission, let's scroll TikTok instead.
Oh man, that entirely explains why I suddenly feel this urgent, inescapable need to reorganize my entire spice rack whenever I have a complex tax return due.
Yes, the spice rack. It's the quintessential immediate mood repair mechanism.
Immediate mood repair, that sounds weirdly clinical for just alphabetizing paprika.
Well, Dr. Tim Peichel, who's this pioneering psychological researcher on this, coined that exact phrase. We habitually prioritize our current mood over our future well-being.
So it's basically, is the term temporal discounting? Did I get that right?
Look at you dropping advanced terminology. Yes, temporal discounting. We inherently undervalue future rewards and consequences compared to immediate gratification.
Right, because future Lucas is a completely different guy. Screw that guy. Current Lucas wants dopamine, and he wants it right now.
Exactly. And get this. fMRI studies literally show that when we envision our future selves, the neural activity resembles how we think about a complete stranger.
Wait, hold on, stop. Are you absolutely serious right now?
Completely serious. Brain imaging demonstrates that the medial prefrontal cortex deactivates when you contemplate yourself a week or even just days from now.
So I literally view Thursday deadline Lucas as just some random dude walking down the street?
Yeah. You're basically assigning a daunting, emotionally taxing endeavor to a complete stranger and saying, good luck, buddy, I'm going to go watch Netflix.
Wow, I am a remarkably terrible person to future Lucas. No wonder he's perpetually stressed out.
We all are, because the immediate relief of avoiding the task, the avoidance coping, feels so phenomenally, intoxicatingly good in the present moment.
But it doesn't, though. Like, okay, I'm watching a YouTube video, but in the back of my mind, I'm continuously agonizing over the thing I'm avoiding. It's like tainted relaxation.
Ooh, tainted relaxation. I absolutely love that phrasing. It's precisely that cognitive dissonance. You're desperately trying to soothe the anxiety, but the avoidance inherently breeds guilt.
Right, which just exponentially compounds the negative emotions associated with the original task.
Exactly. It becomes this vicious, inescapable, self-perpetuating cycle. The task ostensibly gets scarier the longer you intentionally delay it.
It's like, okay, imagine a phenomenally grumpy waiter at a restaurant.
A grumpy waiter? Okay, I'm intrigued. Where are you going with this?
Yeah, if you just look at the menu quickly and order, it's totally fine. But if you keep telling him, give me 5 more minutes, every single time he comes back, he looks progressively angrier and angrier.
That is a remarkably astute analogy. Yes, the impending task is the increasingly hostile waiter.
And by the time you finally muster the courage to order, you're just sweating profusely because the interpersonal tension is utterly unbearable.
Yes, and what neurochemically happens when we're that stressed? Our prefrontal cortex, the logical, executive functioning part of the brain, basically just short circuits.
So the logical, rational brain just checks out completely?
Pretty much. The amygdala fundamentally hijacks the entire system. It's an evolutionary mismatch, honestly.
Evolutionary mismatch, meaning we evolved for the literal savanna, not the corporate cubicle?
Precisely. On the savannah, if you felt a sudden, inexplicable spike of negative emotion, it meant a predator was lurking nearby. You didn't sit down and logically analyze it, you sprinted.
So avoiding a dreadful corporate email is my primitive brain thinking it's literally saving my life. That is wildly pathetic, but also deeply comforting.
Right? It completely reframes the internal narrative. You aren't lacking willpower or moral fortitude. Your threat detection circuitry is just a bit overzealous.
Okay, sure, but if it's an emotional regulation problem, how do I, actually regulate it? Because telling my amygdala to chill out historically never works.
Well, that's where we get into the psychological concept of self-compassion, which most high achievers absolutely unequivocally despise.
Oh God, yeah. Self-compassion just sounds like lighting a lavender candle and giving myself a hug while my entire professional life falls apart.
The skeptic strikes again. But it's actually an incredibly robust, empirically validated psychological tool.
Really? Because my go-to strategy is usually just aggressive self-flagellation until the sheer unadulterated panic forces me to start working.
Which works temporarily, sure, but it spikes your cortisol to astronomical levels. It's an entirely unsustainable methodology.
Yeah, the chronic burnout is very real. So what does this alleged self-compassion actually look like in practical application?
It means objectively acknowledging the internal friction without accompanying judgment, like explicitly saying, I am feeling tremendous psychological resistance to writing this proposal right now.
Wait, just saying it out loud? How on earth does that fix anything?
It's called affect labeling. When you deliberately articulate the specific emotion, you actually diminish the amygdala's intense response and effectively re-engage the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, name it to tame it. I've actually heard that specific phrase before.
Exactly. You're consciously shining the metaphorical flashlight of awareness onto the terrifying monster hiding under the bed.
And thereby realizing it's not a bloodthirsty monster at all. It's literally just a basic spreadsheet.
A profoundly boring but fundamentally harmless algorithmic spreadsheet.
Okay, I'm genuinely starting to get the cognitive mechanics here, but I still feel like there's a monumental gap between accurately labeling the fear and actually executing the work.
Right, because naming the monster doesn't magically write the proposal. You still have to, actually type the words.
Exactly. The monster is objectively acknowledged, but he's literally still sitting on my keyboard demanding a sacrifice.
Which brings us to the fundamental concept of activation energy. It's a term co-opted from chemistry, but psychologically speaking, it refers to the absolute minimum threshold of cognitive effort required to initiate a specific behavior.
Activation energy. So basically just the baseline friction of getting started.
Precisely. It takes exponentially more energy to transition from a state of complete inertia to a state of momentum than it does to simply maintain that momentum once you're actually moving.
Oh, like pushing a stalled car. It's excruciating to get the tires rolling initially, but once it's inching forward, it's significantly less agonizing.
Yes, perfect analogy, Lucas. Now, the procrastination phenomenon essentially occurs when your brain perceives the activation energy of a specific task as insurmountably high.
So we inherently default to the path of least resistance, which is unsurprisingly doom scrolling through social media for 3 hours.
Exactly, because the activation energy for doom scrolling is essentially zero. It requires zero cognitive load.
Okay, but how do we successfully manipulate or, I guess, systematically circumvent that? Because I obviously can't artificially lower the objective difficulty of an inherently complex project.
But you absolutely can artificially lower the perceived difficulty. You do it by fundamentally altering the parameters of the initiation phase.
Wait, I don't follow. Altering the parameters? Luna, that sounds like terrible corporate jargon.
Okay, fair. Think of it like dealing with a profoundly uncooperative toddler who adamantly refuses to eat their vegetables.
I feel personally attacked, but proceed.
If you drop a massive, intimidating head of broccoli onto their plate, they will instinctively rebel. The activation energy for eat this giant green tree is monumentally too high.
Right, so you actively deceive them and hide it in their macaroni and cheese?
No, that's subterfuge. We're aiming for psychological optimization, not trickery. You drastically reduce the required commitment. You explicitly say, just eat one microscopic floret. Just chew it. You don't even have to swallow it if you genuinely hate it.
Oh, you purposefully give them an incredibly low stakes out.
Exactly. In behavioral psychology, we refer to this as the micro-step strategy. You systematically deconstruct the terrifying overarching project into a task so ridiculously infinitesimal that your amygdala doesn't even register it as a legitimate threat.
So instead of aggressively telling myself, I need to finalize this comprehensive Q3 financial report by 5 p.m.,
You tell yourself, I am exclusively committing to opening the Excel application. That is the entire scope of the task, just opening the software.
Wait, seriously? Just opening Excel? But that doesn't actually accomplish anything tangible.
It accomplishes everything. Lucas, you're fundamentally underestimating the profound psychological power of the Zeigarnik effect.
The what? The Zeigarnik effect?
Zeigarnik. It's a cognitive psychological principle definitively stating that human beings inherently remember and are deeply fixated on uncompleted or interrupted tasks significantly more than completed ones.
Oh, like when a ridiculously catchy pop song gets permanently stuck in your head because you only heard the chorus and your brain is desperately trying to resolve the melody?
Bingo! Your brain absolutely despises open loops. It neurologically craves cognitive closure.
Okay, so by forcing myself to just open the spreadsheet, I'm deliberately opening a psychological loop?
Yes. Once the document is visibly open on your monitor, the activation energy required to type one single solitary cell of data is drastically lower than the energy it initially took to boot up the program.
Because the car is already rolling.
Exactly. You successfully bypass the initial friction. And once you type one cell, the Zeigarnik effect inevitably kicks in, generating a subconscious, low-level cognitive itch to just keep going.
Wow, so you're literally hijacking your own cognitive dissonance.
You're weaponizing it for productivity. It's honestly a brilliant neurological hack.
But wait, Luna, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. What if I successfully open the spreadsheet, the loop is open, and I still just stare at the aggressively blinking cursor in an existential panic?
Deep breath. That's a highly prevalent scenario, actually. If the microstep doesn't spontaneously induce momentum, it signifies that the microstep was still fundamentally too large.
Too large? Opening a file is too large? How do you feasibly get more granular than that?
You make it microscopic. I've had clinical clients where the mandated initial task was literally sit in the ergonomic office chair for 2 minutes without even turning the computer monitor on.
Geez, that sounds almost absurdly granular, like comically small.
It sounds entirely ridiculous, sure, but we are actively dealing with a primitive biological threat response. You have to gently coax the sympathetic nervous system into a state of parasympathetic regulation.
Right, which circles perfectly back to the whole affect labeling thing we discussed earlier. Objectively naming the fear, actively reducing the amygdala's intense response.
Exactly. It all synergistically intertwines. And there's another remarkably effective methodology to pair directly with this, professionally known as temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. That sounds suspiciously like a highly questionable marketing tactic from a predatory cable company.
It was actually conceptually coined by a brilliant behavioral economist named Katie Milkman. It's the strategic neurological coupling of an instantaneous gratification behavior with a delayed gratification behavior.
So, intentionally pairing something I desperately want to do with something I'm actively enthusiastically avoiding?
Precisely. You deliberately link a highly intrinsically rewarding activity, like listening to a gripping, salacious true crime podcast, exclusively to an aversive, high-friction task.
Like, I can strictly only listen to the podcast while I'm doing my agonizingly monotonous cardiovascular routine at the gym?
Yes. Or, I have a distinguished colleague who rigidly only allows herself to consume her excessively expensive artisanal iced latte while simultaneously answering her dreaded backlog of unread emails.
Wait, that's actually genius. The latte effectively becomes the Pavlovian trigger for tackling the inbox.
Exactly. You are literally neurologically overriding the anticipation of dread with the anticipation of an immediate dopamine hit.
But does that actually sustain efficacy long term? Or does the intrinsic aversion to the emails eventually irrevocably poison the enjoyment of the latte?
That's an incredibly astute question, Lucas. There is absolutely a documented empirical risk of the aversive task contaminating the reward if the intrinsic friction is too overwhelmingly negative.
Right, like if I despise cardio so intensely that it retroactively ruins my absolute favorite podcast, which, let's be painfully honest, is highly probable for me.
Right, which is specifically why temptation bundling is overwhelmingly most efficacious for mundane, tedious tasks, like basic administrative chores or folding laundry, rather than deeply cognitively demanding, high-anxiety projects.
Ah, okay. So I categorically shouldn't pair my sacred artisanal coffee with, say, writing a terrifyingly complex legal brief.
Probably not. For the profoundly intimidating legal brief, you'd optimally want to revert back to the microstep strategy and heavily leverage the Zeigarnik effect.
Okay, this conversation is fundamentally shifting my entire paradigm regarding modern productivity.
Most people perpetually operate under the highly fallacious assumption that procrastination is merely a discipline deficit. They assume they just inherently lack willpower.
Yeah, I'm just fundamentally lazy. I have absolutely zero self-control. That is the universal, pervasive internal monologue.
It is. But willpower is a rapidly depleting, biologically constrained cognitive resource. It is entirely, irrevocably finite.
So relying on sheer willpower to consistently overcome procrastination is essentially a structurally doomed strategy right from the very outset.
Exactly, Lucas. Expecting sheer willpower to universally override profound emotional dysregulation is akin to expecting a rudimentary paper umbrella to effortlessly deflect a Category 5 hurricane.
Right. You're inevitably going to get catastrophically obliterated.
Precisely, which inevitably brings us to the significantly more sustainable paradigm of, cognitive offloading via environmental architecture.
Wait, cognitive environmental architecture? That genuinely sounds like I need a master's degree in interior design just to, casually pay my taxes on time.
No, it's not that complex. I'm essentially just talking about deliberately manipulating the inherent friction embedded within your immediate surroundings.
Okay, hold on. Elaborate on the concept of friction in this specific context. Are we talking about making it physically arduous to access ubiquitous distractions?
Yes, unequivocally. Think of it like this. Imagine you're perpetually attempting to abstain from consuming, an entire decadent chocolate cake, right?
Which, for the record, is a formidable, almost Herculean psychological challenge on a mundane Tuesday night.
Right, obviously. But if that cake is prominently displayed on your kitchen counter, the cognitive friction required to consume it is practically zero. It necessitates absolutely zero activation energy.
So my prefrontal cortex is just continuously expending finite, depletable willpower just staring at the icing.
Exactly. But if you lock that cake inside a reinforced titanium safe and then, hurl the key into a terrarium brimming with aggressive, venomous scorpions?
Okay, Luna, that escalated to absolute sheer madness very rapidly.
I know. But the fundamental pedagogical point remains. You have drastically amplified the friction. You aren't relying on willpower anymore. You're relying on, a visceral fear of arachnids to circumvent the indulgence.
Oh, okay. So transferring this bizarre analogy back to procrastination, if my primary conduit for avoidance is, let's say, aimlessly scrolling social media.
The absolute most ubiquitous culprit in modern society, unquestionably.
Right, so if my smartphone is literally resting ominously on my desk while I attempt to draft that terrifyingly complex legal brief, the friction to pick it up is practically non-existent.
Zero. It's essentially negative friction. Your brain is actively craving that immediate, potent dopamine spike.
So the environmental architecture would dictate that I, relocate the device to an entirely different room? Or, following your scorpion methodology, perhaps submerge it in a vat of industrial acid?
Temporarily relocating it to another room is substantially more pragmatic, Lucas.
or utilizing stringent software that brutally blocks specific domains during designated deep work intervals.
Ah, so you're proactively severing the accessibility. You're preemptively rendering the detrimental choice practically impossible to seamlessly execute.
Precisely. You are architecting a sophisticated choice environment where the path of least resistance inherently aligns with your overarching long-term objectives.
Wow, that is incredibly profoundly liberating, actually, because it completely absolves you from the perpetual guilt of continuously failing an unwinnable willpower test.
It really does, because we are fundamentally battling a deeply ingrained, formidable evolutionary glitch called hyperbolic discounting.
Hyperbolic, okay, you've completely lost me again. That sounds like sophisticated financial terminology that I ostensibly slept through during my university lectures.
It genuinely does sound intensely academic, but it's fundamentally fascinating. It is a cognitive bias where we disproportionately value instantaneous rewards over vastly superior deferred long-term rewards.
Oh, wait, so it is akin to I intellectually comprehend that diligently investing in my retirement portfolio will unequivocally benefit future Lucas.
Yes, exactly. Keep going.
But present Lucas derives significantly more instant gratification from purchasing, I don't know, a ridiculously opulent, overpriced espresso machine right this very absolute second.
Boom, spot on. Hyperbolic discounting is essentially your primal brain emphatically screaming, I demand the immediate dopamine saturation right now, and future consequences are entirely irrelevant.
Geez, so my exquisitely evolved human brain is essentially acting like a profoundly impulsive toddler aggressively demanding candy at the grocery store checkout aisle.
That is a remarkably accurate, highly illustrative analogy, Lucas. And neuroimaging studies, specifically functional MRIs, actually brilliantly illuminate this exact phenomenon.
Wait, really? Are you insinuating we can literally visualize this internal temporal conflict occurring in real time?
Oh, absolutely. When eminent neuroscientists instruct research participants to vividly conceptualize their present self, the medial prefrontal cortex, which is heavily implicated in self-referential processing, illuminates substantially.
Okay, so the brain undeniably recognizes me right now as, well, inherently me.
Right. But, and this is the genuinely staggering psychological revelation, when they ask those same participants to deeply contemplate their future self, that specific neural activation precipitously plummets.
Wait, seriously? It profoundly diminishes?
Drastically. In fact, the brain scans when individuals actively think about their future self look virtually indistinguishable from when they contemplate a completely unfamiliar random stranger.
No. Are you legitimately suggesting that my brain neurologically perceives the Lucas who has to pay the agonizing consequences tomorrow as a fundamentally different human being?
I am literally conveying to you that from a strictly neurological standpoint, you perceive future Lucas as a total stranger. Therefore, you feel practically zero empathetic obligation to assist him.
My mind is unequivocally blown. That is staggeringly tragic. I'm profoundly, perpetually sabotaging some random, innocent guy ostensibly named Future Lucas.
Exactly. When you procrastinate, you're maliciously delegating this monumental, stress-inducing endeavor to this hypothetical stranger, fallaciously assuming he'll miraculously possess the infinite fortitude to handle it.
Oh my God, that intrinsically explains so much. I literally always rationalize, oh, tomorrow Lucas will definitely be hypermotivated and flawlessly well-rested.
Tomorrow, Lucas will undoubtedly be an unstoppable productivity juggernaut.
Yes, but tomorrow Lucas invariably awakens and is still just undeniably, disappointingly me. Miserable, perpetually exhausted, and desperately yearning to evade the task.
Precisely. And this is predominantly why deliberately cultivating profound empathy for your future self is a surprisingly potent, albeit unconventional, antidote to perpetual procrastination.
Empathy for myself. So how does one pragmatically execute that abstract concept? Do I, meticulously draft a heartfelt, poignant letter to future Lucas?
I mean, some prominent psychologists literally advocate for that exact exercise, yes.
Or utilizing sophisticated software applications that artificially age your photograph to visually confront you with your elderly visage, artificially enhancing that crucial emotional tether.
That sounds deeply existentially terrifying, to be completely candid with you.
It can be undeniably confronting, but fundamentally, it is about momentarily pausing when the visceral urge to procrastinate emerges and explicitly asking, is this momentary distraction going to brutally penalize future Luna?
So you are intentionally bridging that egregious cognitive disconnect. You're forcibly propelling the present brain to acknowledge the future ramifications.
Exactly. You're actively attempting to synthesize those two distinct temporal identities back into a cohesive whole.
Wow, this completely dismantles the conventional societal narrative. We've traversed from the fascinating Zeigarnik effect and intrinsic task friction
to the profound inevitability of willpower depletion and meticulous environmental architecture.
And now we're confronting the bizarre neurological reality that we essentially view our future selves as completely unrelated, burdensome strangers we passionately despise.
It is a densely layered, multifaceted psychological labyrinth, Lucas. Procrastination is unequivocally never merely a singular, isolated character flaw. It's a complex culmination of myriad evolutionary mechanisms, desperately clashing with modern societal expectations.
Okay, so we comprehensively understand the underlying pathology now. We comprehend the psychological why with profound, unparalleled clarity.
We definitely do. We've meticulously deconstructed the foundational problem.
But my immediate, extraordinarily pressing concern is, what is the comprehensive, universally applicable operational protocol? How do I actually deploy all this to permanently circumvent my procrastination?
Well, formulating that definitive, robustly actionable protocol is precisely the most logical, imperative progression for us to tackle.
Okay, let's seamlessly dive into those pragmatic solutions then, because I urgently require a meticulous, infallible blueprint.
Right. So the initial, arguably most critical intervention is what psychologists actually term temporal scaffolding.
Temporal scaffolding. Okay, I'm slightly intimidated by the academic nomenclature, Luna.
Don't be. It's actually profoundly simplistic in its practical application. Essentially, you have to consciously engineer an artificial continuum between your present reality and that alienated future self we discussed.
So wait, how do I tangibly execute that? Like, do I write my future self an eloquently crafted apology letter for being so lazy?
I mean, you joke, but empirical studies suggest journaling from the perspective of your future self significantly ameliorates temporal discounting.
Wait, actually, you're literally telling me to LARP as 80-year-old Lucas?
Precisely. Or even just Lucas from next Thursday. You vividly articulate, the palpable relief you'll experience once that ubiquitous spreadsheet is unequivocally finished.
Oh, wow. So you're cognitively bridging that empathy gap.
Exactly. But let's pivot to something even more immediate, the absolute hyperfragmentation of the impending task.
Okay, break that down for me. Hyperfragmentation.
It's the absolute antithesis of the monumental to-do list. When you write compile quarterly tax report, your amygdala basically perceives a ravenous saber-toothed tiger.
Right, because it's overwhelmingly abstract. It triggers that intrinsic task friction we covered in the beginning.
So you disintegrate it into infinitesimal, almost laughably trivial microactions. You don't do taxes. You simply open a specific folder on your desktop.
Wait, that's the whole task? Just clicking a folder? That feels entirely too easy.
Literally, yes. It's like, imagine you're attempting to coax an extraordinarily suspicious feral cat out from under a porch.
Okay, I am the feral cat in this scenario, presumably.
Unequivocally, Lucas. You don't lunge at the cat with a terrifying net. That's the equivalent of due taxes. You leave one microscopic morsel of tuna right at the edge.
Oh, now I get it. The tuna is opening the folder.
Yes, because once you circumvent that initial disproportionately massive psychological barrier of just starting, the Zeigarnik effect, which we analyzed earlier, spontaneously takes over.
Right, the brain's innate compulsion to finish an incomplete loop. That is a brilliant callback, Luna. We're integrating all the concepts.
It's weaponizing your own neurological quirks to your profound advantage, but we absolutely can't ignore the environmental architecture.
The friction manipulation we mentioned. How do we pragmatically implement that on a daily basis?
By ruthlessly auditing your workspace.
If your phone is perpetually situated on your desk, you are relying entirely on sheer, exhaustible willpower to passively ignore it.
And we already established willpower as a finite, rapidly depleting metabolic resource.
Exactly. You must consciously construct an environment where indulging in a distraction demands significantly more kinetic exertion than engaging with the work itself.
So, putting the phone, in a literal lockbox in an entirely different room?
Or burying it under a formidable pile of laundry. Whatever maximizes the kinetic friction. Make it obnoxiously inconvenient to procrastinate.
That makes so much sense. It's like you're pre-committing your future self before they even have the logistical opportunity to sabotage you.
It's classically referred to as a Ulysses pact, like Ulysses deliberately tying himself to the mast so he wouldn't succumb to the sirens.
Geez, so the sirens are TikTok and Instagram in this profoundly depressing modern allegory.
It's tragically accurate, though. You're deliberately constraining your future autonomy to guarantee a substantially more beneficial outcome. Okay, I have a sincere question. What if I do all this, the hyperfragmentation, the environmental auditing, and I still just sit there paralyzed by inexplicable existential dread?
Then we must confront the underlying emotional regulation component, because procrastination is, fundamentally, an evasion of negative affect.
The anxiety, the crippling fear of inadequacy, the pervasive feeling that whatever I ultimately produce will be catastrophically mediocre.
Precisely. That's where cognitive reappraisal is paramount. You have to consciously detach your intrinsic self-worth from the qualitative output of the task.
That sounds incredibly arduous. Like, how do I actually achieve that psychological detachment in real time?
By deliberately embracing the liberating concept of the gloriously abysmal first draft.
Gloriously abysmal. I am intimately familiar with that genre.
Give yourself explicit, unapologetic permission to initially produce absolute garbage. Lower the internal threshold for success to merely existing on a page.
Oh, I see. You're mitigating the paralyzing perfectionism. If the solitary goal isn't write a profound masterpiece, but rather write something terribly, the friction dissipates.
Right, because a terrible draft is tangibly editable. A pristine, intimidatingly blank canvas is an impenetrable fortress.
That is incredibly liberating, Luna. It essentially defangs the entire intimidating process.
So let's effectively synthesize these pragmatic strategies into a cohesive, actionable daily regimen.
Yes, please. Give me the absolute executive summary.
Step 1. Systematically cultivate temporal empathy by vividly visualizing the subsequent relief of your future self.
Check. Empathize with future Lucas. Poor guy.
Step 2. Annihilate task ambiguity through extreme hyperfragmentation. Find the microscopic tuna morsel.
Find the tuna. I love that analogy so incredibly much.
Step 3. Aggressively architect an environment of disproportionate friction for your pervasive vices.
Lock the smartphone in a metaphorical or potentially literal dungeon.
And step 4. Ruthlessly lower the preliminary bar to wholeheartedly embrace the gloriously abysmal first draft.
That is a phenomenal, infinitely actionable blueprint. I honestly feel profoundly less intimidated by my own incompetence right now.
That's the ultimate objective. Now, I have a deliberate psychological challenge for everyone currently listening.
Ooh, yes, homework time, but like the intellectually stimulating kind.
I want you to ruthlessly identify the one colossal task you've been persistently, guiltily avoiding all week.
We all unequivocally have at least one. Don't lie to yourselves.
And I challenge you to isolate the absolute smallest, most infinitesimally trivial microstep required to initiate it and execute just that one singular microstep today.
Literally just open the document or pull out the yoga mat. That is the entirety of it.
If you actually attempt this, please drop a comment and let us know what your specific tuna morsel was. We'd be thoroughly fascinated to read the variations.
Seriously, do it. And if this neurological deep dive fundamentally altered your perspective, make sure to seamlessly hit subscribe and follow English Pod Center for more profound psychological deconstructions.